What a pleasure seeing such an amazingly wonderful family. Dr. Zelenko, what a wonderful picture of you and your family. So who do we see? Let's introduce.
This is my 8-year-old Mendy,
Hi.
Mindy
and this is Shmuley.
and
He's
Shmuley.
Hi.
How old are you? How old are you, Shmuley?
I'm 10.
This is Nachum. Nachum is 11.
You should share with your children. We just can watch, talk to your children. I think that is the most important audience.
Haggadah Lebincha, but that's not only for Pesach. We can every
Right.
moment is an educational experience.
Yeah. So what are you going to tell your children?
I'm going to tell them it's a tremendous, beautiful gift to be a Jew, to be able to connect with God's wisdom through the Torah and to connect to God through the observance of his commandments. And the one unique aspect to Judaism is that we don't keep our God in the synagogue. We bring God everywhere. And so even in the simple things of tying your shoes, for example, do it in the right conceptual way, you could be serving God with such a simple act as well. So the code of Jewish law is all encompassing, and it tells us how to Jew it, and in the actual details of every second and every moment, we can be one with the Creator. And Hanukkah brings that to light, so to speak, which I'd like to develop that idea. There was a menorah in the temple, in the Holy Temple, and that menorah was inside a place called the Kodesh. And in addition to the menorah there, they had another table for bread, for the showbreads, and then we had a altar for burning incense. And each one of those three unique structures symbolized a unique mechanism for bringing blessing into the world. So for example, the menorah in the temple represented the spiritual energy and vitality of the Jewish people. And it was the source of spiritual blessing. And it's explained in Kabbalah that there are 7 types of unique soul tendencies. And those 7 types were represented by the 7 branches of the menorah made out of 1 piece of gold. And the symbolism there was that since even though there were 7, but the commandment that God told Moshe to make the menorah out of 1 piece of gold. And he had to be shown directly how to do it because of its complexity and mystery of how to form the actual menorah. So the menorah in the temple represented the source of spirituality, of Jewish spirituality and Jewish unity. So when the time of Hanukkah, when the Greeks came and disrupted the functioning of the temple, they defamed and desecrated all that was holy to the Jewish people. And they, by the way, they were not against the observance of Torah. They were against assigning a divine supernatural dimension to Jewish faith. In other words, they recognized that the study of the Torah had tremendous amount of benefit, intellectual stimulation and wisdom and practical matters of how to live proper in society and so on. So they saw the value of that, but what they didn't see or they didn't want to tolerate was the understanding, the Jewish perception of how the Torah is an expression of the infinite wisdom of God. And the reason why that was the case, why they were so much against it, is it undermined their power and their authority. Because when someone is connected to the creator of the universe, he is freed from the tyranny of other peoples. And that's very relevant to our time and our situation. So when the Jews refused to capitulate and they maintained the sanctity of the Torah and kept on ascribing and teaching the concept of the Torah's infinite wisdom will of God. So the Greeks decided to destroy the temple and to defame all that was holy to the Jewish people. So when they attacked the temple and destroyed it, I think they even brought a pig into the Holy of Holies and so on, and completely decimated our God's home. And then when after the war was won by the Jews eventually, it was discovered that there was one jar of oil that was not desecrated. It still had the seal that of the great Kohen Gadol, which meant that it was still pure, and there was enough for one day. So the actual miracle of Hanukkah we consider to be 8 days, and there are many explanations, like we mentioned earlier. But one is that they actually won the war, which was miraculous. And number two, they say that no matter, they knew that there was enough only for one day, and they also knew that it took 8 days to make new fresh oil. So they allocated an eighth of the oil into 8 jars, and their rationale was at least let it burn a little bit every day, and yet it burned the whole day. So even on the first day, there was a miracle. That's one explanation. The other was, no matter how much oil they would pour out, the jug of oil stayed full. So there are a lot of explanations, but the point is that it's 8 days. And that's where I wanted to compare and contrast the concept of the menorah in the temple of 7 branches to the menorah of Hanukkah that has 8 branches, and try to illustrate the significance of the differences, and then explain one universal concept that will explain all the differences and unify them into something that we can bring into our lives and make relevant to us. So in Kabbalah, and in Hasidic thought, the number 7 is frequently associated with natural phenomenon, whether it's the 7 days of the week, or the 7 years of the Shemitah, the agricultural cycle that the Torah describes, or whether it's the 7 emotional attributes. The concept of 7 is a familiar idea that is associated with the natural order of things. The number 8 is exactly one level in concept higher than that. So what is higher than nature? It's that which is supernatural. So for example, the 8th day is considered a supernatural auspicious time. That's why we circumcise children on the 8th day of their birth. And even what's called the Yovel, which is the 50th year when all debts are forgiven and slaves are freed and so on. That goes after 7 cycles of 7, which is 49. And then the 50th year, which is higher than those 49 levels, whether it's the 50th level of understanding, as explained Nun Sharabina. The concept of going higher than 7 into the concept of 8 represents the difference between nature and that which is higher than nature, or something that's finite and that which is infinite. So there were very different laws and details regarding the 2 menorahs. So for example, the Zman Hadlaka, the time that the menorah was lit in the temple, was Plaga Mincha time. It was during the day when it was still light. The menorah of Hanukkah is lit at night. Also in the Kodesh, in the holy, the menorah itself was towards the right. And we have the custom of putting the menorah on the left side of a doorpost, corresponding that of the mezuzah, which is on the right. But the actual menorah goes on the left. So the menorah by Hanukkah is associated with the left side, whereas the menorah in the temple was associated with the right side. And also the Mokum Hadlaka, that the menorah in the temple was inside the holy. It was indoor. It was inside, whereas the menorah in Hanukkah is the concept. Ideally, is to be outside and to illuminate the outside. So, what is the one idea that could unify all these different concepts or details? So, a simple question: what is the difference between finite light and infinite light? And then we can understand all the different details of the two menorahs. So for example, when it comes to finite processes, so if I turn on light, so darkness dissipates. But if I turn off the light, the darkness comes back. So it turns out that the actual light itself, the finite light itself, sit down please. The finite light itself didn't change anything, but rather pushed away or suppressed the darkness, but it didn't change the darkness. And the proof is that when you turn off the lights, the darkness recurs or returns. But when we deal with infinite processes, then it's within the power of the infinite to transform the finite. So in other words, by way of analogy, if you would turn on the lights, then the darkness would go away. But if you turn off the lights, it's still light. That it didn't really go away, the darkness. It was completely transformed into a concept of good. That's the difference between suppression and transformation. In the Hasidic parlance, it's called iskathia and ishapcha. That one, the finite light, is suppression of negativity, whereas the infinite light transforms negativity into something that is in its essence good and reveals its goodness. So with that understanding, we can understand why Hanukkah, the menorah in Hanukkah is lit at night. Well, because we need to transform the darkness. We also understand why it's outside. In Judaism, we consider the inside a reshus yochid, a private domain, a domain where divinity dwells. And the reshus harabim, the domain of multiplicity, represents that which is evil and separate, the opposite of unity. So the reason why the menorah by Hanukkah is outside is because we're trying to tame the demons. We're trying to unify all the multiplicity into a oneness of holiness. So that's why it's lit at night, and that's why it's lit outside. And why is it lit on the left? It's interesting. In Latin, the word for left is sinister. That the right is usually associated with the concept of holiness and kedusha. The left is usually associated with the concept of severity and that which is the opposite of holiness. So by, again, taking the menorah at Hanukkah, placing it to the left, outside, and at night, all have the symbolic representation and meaning that that's where the evil is. And the job of the number 8, the infinite light of Hanukkah, is to break the evil in such a way that it's no longer evil. It's not sufficient enough to suppress it, but rather we're going to completely transform it, that it is no longer evil. And this is what we find ourselves now. This year, 2020, was a year that everyone will remember for their whole life. It's not a normal year. What happened and is happening has revealed to the entire world that there is a problem in the world, that the world is in an imperfect state. The world is filled with separation. The world is filled with night and darkness. The world is a sinister world. Without going into too many details, but I think it's obvious for anyone who kept their eyes open that humanity was taken advantage of, that humanity was led into a state of panic and anxiety for the nefarious and selfish and evil motives of others. So our job right now, which is the wonderful opportunity of Hanukkah, is to break that it never happens again, to illuminate and bring hope and optimism, or the opposite of anxiety. You see, anxiety lives in the place where God is not revealed. So the key to this world of lies is to reveal the truth. And what is the truth? The truth is the ubiquitous omnipresence of God, that he's everywhere all the time. And he always was and he always will be. But more importantly, he is, and he is now here. And this type of awareness of God's immanence, presence in real time in your life, and the ability to have an intimate, passionate relationship with the Creator, and then using that infinite potential to transform the inner and outer demons, is the potential of Hanukkah. So my blessings to all of humanity, to my people and to all the people of the world, that we should all live in a world of unity, in a world where God's oneness is evident to everyone, where the falsehood and the evil motives of selfish people are transformed, and these people themselves become lovers of God and lovers of humanity. I know it's a tall order, but that's the power of Hanukkah, and I think that it's not only a miracle for the Jewish people; it's a miracle for the whole world, and the whole world benefits from the transformation of darkness to light.
What a wonderful blessing! Of course, I accept and share together with you this amazing blessings to Jewish people and mankind. And I want especially send blessings to you and your family, that you should enjoy each other, rejoice with each other for many years and decades together, and good health and strength. And also, what an amazing idea of actually transforming your weaknesses into your strength. That's the whole idea. It's not enough to suppress your weakness, correct? It is important to turn your weakness around and make your weakness work for God, for good, turning darkness into light. And if we have this private victory of not just defeating the enemy within, but rather changing the direction, transforming our weakness into strength, so too the darkness, the external darkness, will turn into light. All the best to you and to your amazing family. Thank you so much.
God bless.
Thank you.